I don't know here. Hi, everybody. It's Andra Annette. I'm back again, and I have another friend with me. This is Ella. So, Ella is a new published author, and I'm going to really let her tell you a little bit more about her story. So, I met Ella when I was interviewing people for a Phoenix TV show I'm doing, Healing from the Inside Out. And I was looking for people with experience in mental health, whether it was a professional career or personal experience that they had gone through. So her story is very inspiring, and it was her story that really led to her book. So I'm going to let her share that with you. So please help me welcome Ella DeMilo.
Hi, everybody. So I have a new book coming out. It's releasing on August 1st. It's called From Broken to Beautifully Broken. And it's really a story about turning grief into growth. So it's taking all of the traumas that you've had in your life, and instead of becoming a victim to those traumas, sort of finding the hidden gem inside of those traumas to become the best version of yourself. So my story really started at a time in my life where I had a compilation of mental health issues that I wasn't really aware of, that had gone undiagnosed for a very long time, but they presented themselves as an eating disorder. So it was through treatment at my treatment center that I really dug into these traumas, and I really opened the old wounds. And it was finally at that time that I was able to heal. So part of my healing journey was writing. Writing for me was always a way to express my emotion. Even as a child, I wrote poetry. If I wanted something from my parents, I would write them a letter rather than speak to them. So writing was always my passion. So when it came to expressing my emotions during treatment, I often chose to write. And it was at that moment when I realized that I'm not the only one that went through these kind of traumas. And there is this stigma that's attached to getting the help that you need when you're feeling emotionally unbalanced. And I really want my book to eliminate that stigma. So my book is twofold, really. It talks about the trauma, and it talks about how I was able to pull myself out of the trauma and become the best version of myself through therapy and through the many different avenues that I had. But I also want my book to not just be for the people who are suffering. I want it to be for the people who surround those who are suffering, because somebody's journey through healing, somebody's journey through growth really is contingent upon the people they surround themselves with. So if we have a society as a whole that's not very educated in brain health and emotional health, then how can we really expect, our loved ones, our friends, our family, our husbands, our wives, whoever, to be that support system that we need when we're going through treatment or our journey, whatever it may be, if they don't understand it fully? So, when I had my eating disorder, my family jumped in and everybody helped with the kids and everybody helped with the house and the cooking and the cleaning, but there was an undertone that was never really spoken about. And it was kind of like they didn't understand how I had gotten to this point in my life, how I had allowed myself to get to this point in my life. And it wasn't their fault. It's just the lack of education surrounding mental health. And I think while we are being proactive now, post COVID, by providing all these avenues for different mental health things for people, we also have to be, proactive in the way where we're educating children at a young age how to handle their emotions correctly. Like, we talk about so many different things that you learn in school, but we don't really have an education for children that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel your feelings, because it really starts at a young age that children can learn how to express themselves in the right way, so that as they get older, it doesn't affect them in any other way. So we need to be teaching our children. We need to be teaching the adults. Everybody needs to have a part in eliminating the stigma on mental health. So I'm hoping my book will do that a little bit. I'm hoping that someone can read a part of my book and relate to it, and it will help them to find their voice. And, all of us together can sort of silence the stigma that's associated with mental health.
I love what you're doing, and you said something that I find it's not really ironic, because I'm of the same world where, as a child, we're taught at a very young age, oh, why are you crying? No, baby, don't cry. And we're really taught, to stifle those feelings and not really let them out. And that does have an impact on getting through certain stages of development that we really need to get through, the identity. And I think that does hinder children, but it impacts them on a much larger scale when they're interacting with others outside of the family, and they're afraid to cry because of what they've been told, because it's a fear almost, because they're told not to cry and they don't know why their parent doesn't want them to cry. They don't know that it's their parent not wanting to see them sad. They just know that in some way somebody doesn't want them to have that feeling. So they see it as a bad thing, and bad is
Like
associated with.
shameful. There's a
Yes.
shame associated with it. Yeah.
And I think that's more so with boys too. And that kind of bothers me that, men are not expected to cry or feel. So that has something to do with the gender too. Men are supposed to be tough and women are supposed to be soft. So that has something to do with it too. But I'm out there with you on this fight, doing something for mental health. All I can do is show up as myself and tell people that it bothers me. I did a talk with someone the other day. His name is Dale, and he has a diagnosis of schizophrenia, and he's so much more than the diagnosis of schizophrenia. He's a writer, and he's helping other families deal with family members that have schizophrenia. He's so much more than that diagnosis. And I don't know if people got the message that I was trying to portray, but you just need a little more. I've been talking for an hour and a half straight. So, that I wanted them to see that there's a person behind that. As a nurse, I don't get to say I'm not going to treat someone because they have hypertension or mental health issues. I treat the whole person, and a lot of times the whole family, because the family is a part of that dynamic. But I don't get to judge them. That's not part. I wouldn't be effective in my job if I judged people. So I've been lucky that I don't let stigmas and things like that affect me on a personal level or on a professional level. But I think there is a lot of stigma out there. And I was one of those people that suffered with depression as a child. I mean, really bad depression. And I was ashamed to talk about it because we were
Absolutely.
told, don't talk about it. It was looked at very badly. So I suffered for years in silence, and I don't want to see other children, other people go through that. I want it to be okay to say, I'm not feeling well. I'm emotionally not well. So that's really what the program that I'm doing on Phoenix is really about seeing that all of these parts are part of us. They make up the whole human person, the emotional, the physical, the mental. It's all one person. If you're
Right.
emotionally broke, you're not well. If you're mentally, you're having mental issues, you're not well, not because you're mentally unstable, but because it does impact the rest of you as a person. And we have to treat that whole person and make that available to people, and stop looking at it. We don't talk about it, so people aren't getting that help that they richly deserve, unfortunately.
I mean, mental health is health, right? So, your mental health is associated with so many parts of your regulatory system, even
Absolutely.
your nervous system. So, if you are not in a right place emotionally, you are going to feel the physical effects of that. A lot of times what you're feeling, like you were saying, depression, anxiety, I suffered from that growing up as well. A lot of people didn't want to buy into anxiety. A lot of people wanted to say to me, oh, just stop thinking about it. Or, oh, you're driving yourself crazy. Think about something else. They don't truly understand that it's an imbalance, that, it's a constant fight or flight that your body is in. And all of these things that you keep doing to silence your anxiety are just coping skills, because nobody was really there to teach you the right way to handle those panic attacks, or
Yes.
the right way to deal with the sad and gloomy days. And I think today more than ever, after, we really are in a mental health crisis,
I agree.
worldwide after COVID. I see it with my own children. And I think it has to start at a young age. I think it needs to be incorporated into our regular health. Like, mental health is health. We need to address these things, and we need to educate society as much as we can. Whoever is willing to use their voice to educate others, like you were saying, the other person that you had just interviewed, like, that's wonderful that he's using his voice to, speak up for others with schizophrenia. Takes a lot of courage to do something like that. And I'm hoping
Absolutely.
my book will slowly pull the voice out of everybody who reads it. And even if it's someone who's not suffering who reads my book, maybe it will give them the enlightenment that they need to, maybe I should learn a little bit about eating disorders, and see that an eating disorder is not an illness, it's a symptom of something greater. So you can't just tell someone who has restrictive anorexia, eat your dinner. It doesn't work that way. The
Yeah.
food is a symptom. It's not the actual disorder. It's a symptom of something much larger. And I think many people would be more supportive if they just understood. And I think we really do need to create that, reactive piece where we're treating the people who are ready to be treated, but also the proactive piece where we're educating people before it happens. So, and I think that's the only way that we really do get out of this crisis from
There,
isolation for so long.
there is a lot of crisis. I see a lot of dysregulation. I work a lot with children on the weekends, and there's a lot of dysregulation there. There, because they were isolated, and for some of them, they had bad family home situations, and then they were forced to remain in that and not
Mhm.
have anybody that they could really reach out to have that support. So unfortunately, that one I noticed it. But I find that a lot of people are labeling them when they came back that they have anxiety and they have that. There's a lot of doctors saying they have ADHD and autism and stuff like that, when the children are really having anxiety about being back in society. And we're trying to, I'm actually interviewing a nurse who goes out into the schools and is educating teachers in how to deal with people that are dysregulated, because she said there's nobody doing this education, and I don't understand why, because teachers spend 8 hours a day with them, and it's not that these kids are disinterested, they're dysregulated, they want to learn, they just don't know how to work through what they're going through in this part of their life. So I think that Ella, they're afraid of what they don't know, but they don't have the drive to learn what they don't know. It's easier for them to reside in fear than victor. Does that make sense?
It's your comfort zone, right? Nobody wants to go outside of their comfort zone. But, when you do have children, or you do have a husband or a wife or somebody you love that's going through something like that, their recovery process is contingent upon the people they surround themselves with. So I can't say that enough. So, if you're coming home every day to a husband or a wife who really doesn't believe in mental health, then how are you supposed to become the best version of yourself if the support system around you is telling you otherwise, right? On the other hand, if you have somebody who's educated and you have somebody who's willing to learn along this journey with you, you can grow so much faster. And I really did learn this by being in treatment, because I went into treatment kicking and screaming. Like, I did not believe that I should be there. It was not for me. I wasn't like anybody in there. And then the light bulb went off. And, one of the girls in the treatment center with me said, a, a way that she thought around food. And it was the same exact way that I thought around food. And I thought those were my own thoughts. And it was so strange to hear somebody else say them out loud. And I finally realized, I do belong here. Just because we're all exhibiting different symptoms, we're all exhibiting, some people, were self-harming. Some people actually had physical effects of it, where their heart stopped and they had heart attacks. Although we weren't the same in that sense, we were all the same on how we got to whatever point that was, the thinking that we had surrounding food. So I finally did feel like I was a part of somebody who understood me. And that's the first time I've opened up about things, in my previous 35 years of life, that I've ever opened up about, because I felt that somebody understood me. And so I feel like anybody who's going through this journey, if they have somebody with them who can understand them, it will just make it so much easier. And that really is my hope with my book, is that I can help the people who are suffering and the people surrounding those who are suffering.
Well, I'm definitely going to read your book. It sounds like a very beautiful thing. But I want to talk a little bit about you coming out on the other side, because that's a success, So when you look at where you were and where you are now, you're taking what you've been through and you're sharing that, and that's not easy to do either. There's that's very brave too, to put that out there, to share your story with other individuals in the hope that it helps somebody. So tell me, what made you want to share that story?
It wasn't easy. Like I said, the writing part of it for me was easy, because I always was a writer, but telling my truths and telling my story and telling things that I've never told anybody before, was liberating, but also it was the scariest thing that I've ever done. And the reasoning behind me telling my story is because I truly believe that there are other people out there who are going through the same exact traumas that I did, who are sitting in silence. And the thought of where I was before I went to treatment, the thought of other people in that same place and being stuck in that same place because they feel like they don't have anybody to relate to them, is the reason I wrote this book. Because I can't imagine somebody being where I was. I don't want anyone to be where I was prior to treatment. So if there is anybody out there who's, reading my book and, they just feel that one relatable moment that gives them the strength that they need to find their voice, to get the help that they need, then I'm willing to rehash those old wounds and go through those old traumas, because I think the bigger picture here is helping others get to the other side. It's great that I made it, but there's so many other people out there who need help getting to that other side. And so I really wanted to help them find their voice.
Well, it's been a pleasure listening to you, and I think it's a very selfless thing that you're doing. And I'm glad that you found that hope, and I think there's a lot of people out there that still feel hopeless. And I think that your story is really going to help them hold on to that I can get there too, that these are the steps she took. And even if they don't have to take all those same steps, because that journey might be different for somebody else, as long as they know that there's hope on the other side, that's going to make a difference in a lot of people's life. So we're going to sign off here, but I wanted you to meet her because I think her story is so inspirational, and I don't think enough people are really talking about what it's like to be on the other side and to get through those traumas and those tragedies. And I think that a lot of the reason why people aren't sharing those stories is because there's been such a stigma about having those issues. And these are recovering everywhere. Nobody asked to have mental health issues or eating disorders or any of those things. They do happen though. Nobody asked to be an alcoholic or have heart disease, but they do happen. And I think as a society, we have to be more compassionate and empathetic and look to take the whole community back in to raise that child, because there's a lot of people out there suffering because of our own ignorance or the lack thereof education. So my solution might not be for everybody, but I do think that we have to be proactive and educate ourselves. So I want to thank you for coming. And I will absolutely her name's Elisa. I called her Ella before. I don't want to confuse.
Well,
If
the
you're
book is
looking for
written
Elisa's in
under
the
Ella
old
Shae.
story. It's just been a long day. My utmost apologies, but I am going to put her link in here because I think it's a story that everybody should read. I think that a lot of times we like to get into a romance novel that takes us away somewhere. But I think there's something very special about getting into someone else's journey and putting yourself in their place. And I think that understanding comes, you know, I love to get lost in a book. I read so many books, I can't even tell you. And they're all different. There's no rhyme or reason to why I read them. If you saw what I was reading now, you'd be like, oh my God. But I love to read, and I'm so grateful to you for having that courage to put that out there and being part of the change that you want to see in the world, because that's really the first step. So I'm going to sign off. You can stay with me for a second. I'm Andra Annette, and if you like what you hear here, this is my guest, Elisa. Please be looking for that book. If you like what you see here, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you have a story that's important to you and you think it needs to get out there, please reach out to me. I'd love to share your story. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day.